Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. What's going on, beautiful people? I hope you all are doing well. As you can see, I have some new cards. I did kind of, tease these cards a little bit last message. I said that I had some Black History Month playing cards. Well, no, they're not Black History Month playing cards. That's why I'm using them. But what they are African American, famous African Americans in history playing cards. Yes, but because, in light of February, which is Black History Month, I just thought it would be cool to find something black, and to be able to kind of read the energy. These are very much so, if you can remember back in school, like how you used to have the pictures of famous black folks. You'll see when you see the images. If you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But like when you used to have those like posted up in your classroom, and probably in like elementary or middle school, of different famous black African Americans or black people in general. Usually they definitely were prevalent around February, throughout February, but depending on where you went to school, what area, you may have seen those images, all throughout your school, maybe in the library particularly, so it's very reminiscent in that way of school days, which I think is really cool. It's cute. But anyway, I don't have any particular direction. I'm just going to start fresh in a shuffle, see what comes up. It's really, I think, about kind of channeling messages from ancestors, predecessors, living legends. In some cases they are still alive. And just seeing what the energy has to say. While the frequency of the celebration is still alive. February is the shortest month in the year, but we still got a couple days to tap in. So here we are. All right, so let's see what we got. By the way, today is February 25th. Oh, it's 8:08. It's 8:08, so that may be significant. Let's see what we got. 8:08. Oh, like an 808. I think that was I think that was a song by the group Black. So how appropriate. We might just be on to something here, folks. Hang on tight. All right, we got Diane Carroll. Ooh. And like I said, these are actually playing cards. So we got clubs, hearts, spades, what do we got? Spades and diamonds. So this is the 5 of clubs, which is also the 5 of wands. Interesting. But Diane Carroll, let me pull it up a little bit so you can really get into it. As it says, we just lost her in 2019. I do remember when she transitioned. Actress, singer, and model who is best known for her role in the movies Carmen Jones, as well as Porgy and Bess. Now, funny enough, I don't remember her in Carmen Jones. I have to go back and really research her role, and that probably sounds or maybe this is a different Diane Carroll? Nah, it has to be who I'm thinking of. But of course, what we also remember her on, if you're from the era that I am, you remember her as Whitley's mom on A Different World. That was like, her career being regenerated, beyond her so-called heyday, so to speak, because she has always been a beautiful woman, well preserved, in her age, aged gracefully. But she had much more significant of a career, even as is signified here with Carmen Jones. That's way before my time, like actually when you think about Carmen Jones, it was a very historical production in itself, because I feel like it was like one of the first all black casts that was like a major motion picture where it wasn't just, you know, supporting roles or a few here, a few there, a mix. It was like really all black. And I wish I could remember her role. I can't see it. Of course, we all know Dorothy Dandridge in that role. But the five, interestingly enough, with the five of clubs being the five of wands, it kind of speaks about competition, like about there being kind of like a battle. I just heard a battle of wits, but it's really not. Maybe that's just what I'm drawing on because it's natural to roll off the tongue, but it's really like a battle of energies because it's wand energies. And considering, back in Diane's day, the reason why some of these legends are legends is because they weren't, they were the few of the privileged, so to speak, or the chosen, even if you like that term, that were able to excel and even achieve and maintain monumental success. Like I said, from Carmen Jones up until Different World, and even beyond that, she was still working. Oh, and another role that I love her in, another show that I didn't really watch holistically, but her role is legendary as well. Is she was what was her name? Dominique Devereaux. I think her name was Dominique Devereaux. For sure, it was her last name on the series Dynasty. So consider that also. So we could be talking about some type of like competitive some type of competitive energy for a spot, but particularly for maybe for recognition or for what might be deemed as like favored spots or favored positions. And I like to transmute it from what it was, which was this projection of competition via Hollywood and the entertainment industry as it was, because there literally weren't many opportunities to advance and to express yourself and to achieve purposefully. There was a limitation on that experience and those opportunities for a reason, and transmuted to it being more about how the energies that persevere to find their place against the odds ultimately pave the way for where we really stand now, whereas you can virtually make your own way to stardom and fame and notoriety, and literally create your own stage via platforms like this, or create your own series, your own show, bring your own life story to screen or to print, or whatever the case may be. And it's like where everyone was kind of like pigeonholed through this one portal of success, by way of entertainment and things of that nature, those pillars and platforms. Certainly not limited to Hollywood or to entertainment even itself, but every platform, every pillar of society has more or less been has been constrained by limitations, so that only a few get through, or only, the few are propped up to be kind of like the poster children for what's possible, but the rest are kind of pushed down or pushed out in some way, or there just aren't opportunities there because the support system to create those opportunities isn't there. So yeah, something about that here. So if we're looking at it retrospectively, of course, like I said, she has many notable roles in her career and many firsts, or many like she was the first to do this, or this was like Carmen Jones being in a production such as that, which was the first of its kind. Also, Claudine, she was the star in Claudine as well, which was one of the first series on national television, like like regular TV back in those days, where a black woman was more or less kind of projected. She was a single mom, working mom, career woman, but still was projected with a sense of pride, like not beat down, downtrodden, struggling. And of course, like there might be considerations about the projections of her character at that time, but it was revolutionary for what you could find in a sitcom or in a series of, especially of a reoccurring, a nationally broadcasted one of black essence, starring a black woman with real woman issues, but not projected in a downtrodden way, like someone that, more or less was kind of a success story in all of her challenges. So even that was fresh energy. So it's definitely given that, an inspiration to really exercise your liberty to the fullest extent. Because when you think about the odds that women such as her, people such as her had to surmount and have the longevity, the long career, the legacy to leave behind, it just really signifies that no one in this day and time really has any excuse, like, to put it lightly, you know what I mean? Like, if with all the odds against them, for what it's worth, she was a force, because of course you can consider with Hollywood, they pick and choose who they want, and there's a lot of, things under the table that we could say about the time and space and era of her existence. But one thing we can't deny is her long-lived legacy. What she lived and what she's left behind. So again, it's like, if it can be done with greater odds and less support, and more resistance, then surely it can be so now. If for what is worth, there's much more liberation, even though we could argue ways that it may seem not so, but there's much more liberation and opportunity to advance yourself in this day and time than there's ever been before. So don't get caught up in the rat race with the Five of Wands and that matrix mentality where you get swept into thinking that, well, there's only a few spots, there's only a few chances. You got to be lucky. You got to be the most talented, the most beautiful, the most educated, the most skilled, or whatever the case may be. You just have to use your wand, your sense of creativity, your gifts, your talents, your passion. You just have to exercise that to, the fullest extent that you see fit, that you're inspired to do so. And the work really does itself, especially now more than ever before. So don't get swept up into the facade of competition that really doesn't truly exist anymore now than in the mind of your agreement with it or acceptance of it. Now, Diane, she had a different story. Like, of course, you know, if there was a different sense of enlightenment then, which obviously there wasn't meant to be, there was a paving, there was a evolution underway, but a different sense of enlightenment may have forged different results, you know. But for as far as she's concerned, and in her era, and you know, even before her, you kind of had to work with what you could, and you broke down barriers and walls where you were able to do so. But you know, there really wasn't much as much, you know, opportunity to pave your own way back then. You kind of, to really be taken seriously, or to be or you know, maybe for it to, if it mattered to you, to be acknowledged by your peers with awards and recognition and things of that sort, then there was only really one channel to go through to do so, you know. But now you don't even have to, who cares about the Oscars, the Emmys, the Grammys, the, you know, whatever the recognition may be, even being on television itself, being on the radio itself, you know, being on the big screen. Whose big screen? You can have your own big screen at home, you know what I mean, your own home theater. So it's like the barriers have definitely been broken down, and thanks to these, you know, many in this deck, I'm sure there's something to be said in gratitude for the sacrifices that they made to make it so. Billie Holiday. The card says, an American jazz and swing music singer who is considered to be one of the best jazz vocalists of all time. And I agree with that. Man, Billie Holiday's voice is like, whew, it's just chilling, quite honestly, to me. Just the tone of it and the emotion in her, in the frequency of it all, like, and just such a unique tone, you know, like such a unique sound. Like, you know Billie Holiday as soon as you hear her. You know songs that she sung, you know what I mean? Like, and even songs that have been sung after her, but you still somehow can only really hear her. You know what I mean? But anyway, Billie Holiday also is one of those phenomenal figures, because I'm not sure if you've ever seen the movie on her. I think it might be on like Hulu, or it's on one of those. I think it's Hulu. But anything that I've ever watched about her has always been interesting, like the backstory of her challenges and her personal life, and even her struggles against, you know, the country that she entertained. You know, like she could sing for days for white audiences, black audiences alike, but as soon as she wanted to speak out, even through her music, Strange Fruit being one of those songs that got her into a lot of trouble. You talking about shadow banned, blackballed from what she clearly was born to do, even put in jail, you know, as I think she was like blackballed as like a communist or as some type of enemy of the state, you know, more or less, because they didn't want her to sing that song, and she insisted, you know what I mean, that she felt like it should be her right to express herself as an artist, and as someone obviously of that time that had a stake in that testimony. You know, if you listen to the song Strange Fruit and the things that she must have seen back in those days. Again, this is, I think, even before, yeah, she was born in 1915, so this is even before Diane Carroll. And the Eight of Pentacles, the Eight of Diamonds actually is the Eight of Pentacles, and that's like working, you know, doing what you love to do, doing like kind of being dedicated to production. And she sold a lot of records, you know, back when single records was a thing, you know, not downloads and stuff of that nature, but making a lot of people a lot of money off of her dynamic voice, and even selling out venues to hear her sing live. And you know, when you listen to her on like on recordings, it's chilling, and it really like it really touches you to the soul. So can you imagine being in a room, and very intimate spaces back then, you know, being in a room with her live, hearing her sing from her soul? Like, what a gift and what a blessing for those that got to witness it. But again, she was ostracized and demonized even, for singing her truth, you know. How tragic. And ultimately, I mean, it had a great wear and tear on her mortality, you know. Like, it stressed her the hell out. She was you know, a known, the no she it was known that she had dependencies, particularly on alcohol, but I think maybe perhaps drugs too, whatever the drug of choice was back then. But definitely alcohol was a thing. But can you imagine just fighting to sing, to do what you were born to do, and having the whole world seemingly against you, and you feel helpless, like there's no defenseless, you know, to some large degree, especially to actually get locked up for it. So, you know, like I said, great odds, but still not even more of a powerful message here, to still say what you gotta say and do what you feel is right nonetheless. You know, if they could do it, we can do it. But yeah, I'm trying to see what else. With the Eight of Pentacles is definitely about loving what you do, though, you know, and doing it with high efficiency, and I would say even in excellence, you know, to really, because some, I mean, she was a singer, but we think, and Carroll, I think Diane Carroll was a singer as well, because I think she used to sing on Dynasty. But, you know, ain't no shame in the game of just doing what you love, and almost doing what honestly feels natural to you. That's the other trick of projection sometimes that we face as humans in this world, like feeling like we gotta juggle multiple balls, you know. And it's okay if you are multi-talented and multifaceted, that's great too. But sometimes it's just good to just do what you're good at, you know. Sometimes that paves the way for everything else to flow freely and effortlessly. And in some ways we've lost sight of that, because sometimes it's out of survival, you know, feeling like we have to do something else in order to just survive or make ends meet. But what if that is the meeting of the ends? And in the end, the means to an end of survival itself, you know, really just honing your craft and your gifts and focusing in on that. Like the Eight of Pentacles, he's like fixated on what he's producing, and all of it is, you know, a pentacle. It seems like it's almost like a factory grade production, you know, everything kind of looks the same. But I feel like in this case is likened to just perfection of your craft, you know, practice and attention and dedication and focus and improvement, you know, and yeah, devotion for sure is key. Maybe even discipline in some way, shape, or form, and investment as well of time and energy, you know. Yeah, let's see what else. I didn't want this to be too long. Let me try to go a little faster, but I'm kind of captivated with these cards myself, you know. It's evoking a lot of positive energy from me, especially the older ones. Oh man, and here she is. Maya Angelou, 1928 to 2014, a poet, memoirist, and civil rights activist, best known for her 1969 memoir, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which was the first the first nonfiction bestseller. Wow. By an African American woman. I did not know that. And I read that book in high school. It was a part of our curriculum. God bless Morristown Friends, because I read a lot of great literature in that school. A poet. I mean, really, these cards don't even have enough space to hold the accolades and achievements of these great figures, because we know what Maya means to the Black community. You know, she's like Mother Maya. You know what I mean? Like, she gives Gaia energy, you know, someone that just deeply cares about humanity, you know. And I say it in the present tense because it's almost hard to imagine a world without her. That I feel like that's probably because her essence still lingers on, especially through her words, you know. That's one thing about it. When you write as a poet and a writer, you can live on for eternity, you know, as long as there's pages and print and books and whatever else we hold literature in, you know, moving forward, especially now that it's you know, that it's been immortalized in a virtual form, you know what I mean? But Maya Angelou, yes, like there's so much that I could say about her. And this is the 10 of Diamonds, which is also the 10 of Pentacles. Very fitting, just full of life, energy, wealth, substance, you know, like the total package of a Black woman, you know, as far as we know, you know. And I feel like from the way that she wrote and even expressed herself, like so much of her words have been immortalized as like quotes to live by, you know, like famous quotes. And her poetry is, you know, ingrained in some of our young minds, like some of that substance of, like I said, elementary school and middle school that really shaped your pride, you know, your Black pride in a way, depending on what school you went to and, you know, what era, for sure. I don't know what they're getting in there now so much, but I know back when I was, these are the faces that you would see, you know. As a matter of fact, just a little note, when I was in middle school, I say from about, I started participating, I think I was in either second or third grade. But I want to say second because I was kind of one of the youngest people to be participating. My librarian, another Black woman, and my school was dynamic. It was a city school, but it was a magnet school. So you got some really phenomenal, literally phenomenal women and men that taught, that looked like you at that, you know, back then. And public, you know, up till 8th grade. I didn't go to private school until I went, like I said, to Morristown Friends for high school, but public all the way from preschool to 8th. And the librarian used to put on for Black History Month, she used to produce what was called the, what did she call it? The living, what was it? The living Black History Museum, the Living Museum. You think you never forget some things, but it was basically like a living Black History Museum where she would pick different kids to participate, and you would get a part, like a little monologue to speak, and you know, you dress up, get your costume together and all of that. And sometimes we would travel to other schools to perform it for assemblies, but mainly we would, you know, entertain the different grades and schools within our own school during library time, and it was just it's one of those memories that will never leave me. Even though I want to say, I think I'm kind of cross pollinating the Blacks and Wax Museum with the Living Black History Museum, but it was something like that, you know. And I played every role from Rosa Parks, that was my first ever role, to like African princesses and queens like Queen Nzinga, Nefertiti. I was one year. And then once it was absolutely known that I could sing, I was always in some type of singing part. Like I was Whitney Houston one year. I was the Supremes with two of my best friends one year. And one other singer, I can't remember who it was. Oh, Mahalia Jackson. She didn't come out, but I saw her when I was shuffling. Mahalia Jackson. So it's one thing to like see these pictures on the wall, you know, but then to actually embody. And now that I know what I know, like we were virtually channeling these energies, you know. Shout out to her, Miss McCrae. Yes, we were channeling those energies, not only taking on those personas ourselves, and of course in the highest frequency, but also what we were witnessing among our peers transforming into those energies, and witnessing the audience and, you know, the spectators and other teachers and stuff, kind of like, you know, entertained and inspired by our performances, you know, and things like that. So it's the little things, like, for sure, that back in the day made all the difference in shaping character, you know, that all will always imprint something positive on you, even when you're in a world like I was in high school, where you're dropping the bucket and it's like completely flipped on its head, where you're the minority, and you know, you have to more or less like hold on to your sense of pride and who you are, because, you know, it's not as assumed, and affirmed as it once was. But one thing about Maya, she definitely would affirm. She definitely affirmed in her poetry, from Phenomenal Woman to what's another? Phenomenal Woman is definitely one of the other ones. Still I Rise is another one. She, you know, you might have remembered her on. She had a little acting stint too, as the one of the elders at the picnic on Poetic Justice, which I didn't even really get how you know, fitting that was. Poetic Justice, of course, Maya Angelou. I didn't get that at the time, but now I do. Now I do. But anyway, yeah, just a prominent figure, and it definitely gives way to how words become substance, you know, how much power is in your words, to go from just speaking your thoughts, speaking your experience, writing your ideas down, and how they can actually materialize, not just in the 1, the 2, the 3, but we got the 10 of Pentacles here. Like, just you speaking your truth can materialize into, you know, a legacy that is infinite, that can be passed down. Even the spoken word itself, like the not the narrative, and what's the word that I'm looking for? I'm hearing parable, but like the story of you, you know, is so important. It's important, like how I'm even expressing my connection to these cards as they are, and also, as I said, my experience in the Living Art Museum, the Black History Museum, or whatever it was. It's like those experiences have an effect, you know, they leave an imprint that can't be dismissed, and it can't be erased. And if such is the case for these ladies onto us, then such is the case of us onto those that come behind us. So again, it's definitely about never dismissing the relevance and the impact that the life you're living now has, not just on you and whatever it is you're creating and building, but certainly on those that may not even be old enough to remember, you know what I mean, like all that you've done, but some impression of your frequency is left behind that it can't be forgotten, you know, because if I know a little bit about a Maya, a Billy, a Diane, if certainly I don't know all about any, then that's enough of a thread to kind of like draw me in to want to know more or to be impressed in some type of way by that energy in another way, another form, you know, maybe whether it's by my own research or looking up old movies or going back and reading that book again. I'm sure I would probably understand it much differently now as an adult than I did back then as a teenager, you know. So all of that is like, don't forget that the footprints you make are leaving an imprint, is I think the point that I'm supposed to make, especially amounting to the Ten of Pentacles. That's a very tangible, actual, factual card. We're not just talking about cups, which is energy, spirit, you know, even emotion. This is something actually left to the senses to engage. So let's see what else we got. And it's fulfilling. It's fulfilling. Robert Johnson. Okay, let's see. A great American blues guitarist and singer whose low fidelity recordings went on to influence, wow, some of rock's greatest musicians. I feel like that name is familiar, but I don't absolutely know his songs. But something about that sounds familiar. Low fidelity recordings went on to influence some of rock's greatest musicians. And we know that's major because rock doesn't often get, you know, black folks and their influence on rock and roll, their creativity in it, as a matter of fact, often gets overshadowed by what it morphed into, you know, which you think about rock in many ways, you think of it being more whitewashed or, you know, definitely not as rooted in blackness, you know, as like you would R&B or blues, but those are the roots, you know what I mean, even gospel in some way, shape, and form. But these are the roots, you know, and these are the figures, especially a Robert Johnson, whom, like I said, I'm not really 100% familiar with him, but the name is familiar. But these are the energies that planted seeds that ultimately have sprouted empires, you know, whole movements, made a lot of people rich because somebody probably saw him performing at some small venue somewhere or heard his records underground in some way, shape, or form, took that energy and ran with it. And then art, that's kind of what happens, you know, like things definitely get transmuted and transformed over and over again, but a lot of times the origin of it all is not well recognized and applauded, you know, acclaimed the way it deserves to be. And imagine a world without rock and roll. Can you? I can't. But the Three of Pentacles, I keep saying the actual thing. The Three of Diamonds is the Three of Pentacles, which is about, like, it could be about collaborations. It could be about work or some type of association. But a lot of that card sometimes comes up as like an underground association. So again, like I said, it could have been something somebody heard underground that they made a so-called discovery of, that now, you know, is a universal sensation. And perhaps we could be talking about something that somebody has to offer back to this idea of just doing what you do. You know what I mean? Doing something out of the box, doing something different, doing things. I mean, it probably even may have sounded strange to some what he was doing at the time, because it wasn't what was done, but it then ended up starting a whole movement, a whole genre of music, as a matter of fact, or it's inspiring it, influencing it. Or it says it influenced a lot some of rock's greatest musicians, you know. But and that's an interesting thing too, because sometimes, like I said, back to that five of wands card, we think about the competition of wanting to be the most recognizable, maybe even wanting to be famous, or wanting to be known, or the first two, or the best of, you know. But sometimes it's just about being, and the acclaim, and the success, and just being different and being you. Not even so much the different part, because sometimes that can, you know, have its own ideal of trying to be, you know. But I'm talking about just naturally, organically doing your thing. And as I like my girl Tina Fey says, and not caring if they like it. You know what I mean? Not caring who likes it. But sometimes the reward is really truly in that liberty alone, especially now as opposed to then, where there is less of this fixation on competition in a very small forum, you know, a very narrow, limited space. Now there's so much freedom to just do you. Like, sing your song even if nobody wants to hear it, you know. Publish your book even though if nobody ever reads it, at least in your lifetime, you know what I mean, or in the time frame of which you may have idealized, you know. Create your art, paint your paintings even if nobody wants to buy them just yet, you know. It's something about your imprint on the world that makes all the difference. And now we know that we are not living in this time anymore. Like, everything is super accelerated, where if you're operating in your star frequency, it's bound to make traction in some way, shape, or form, for sure. I just believe that, like, when you're doing what you are supposed to be doing, it's going to have its rewards and its payoff in within the lifetime that you are dedicated to it. However, we certainly can't forget that it's bigger than us. You know, it's way bigger than the impact that you foresee yourself making for yourself. And even if you do have the idea to influence others in a powerful way, you could never imagine how that gets to be, and for how long, and how long after you, you know. And also, you can never really control what that gets to be, because the thing that you may think might make the biggest splash might make a drop in the bucket, and it would be satisfying to do so. But it might be something that you're not even, I'm getting a sense like it could be something that you're not even really that you not that you don't take it seriously, but that it seems almost trivial. Is that the word? Like, almost too simple, too sure, too like, oh, that can't be it. Like, that can't be the thing. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes we treat our gifts that way, you know. Like, that's just way too easy, too simple, too safe, even at times, that it could just be that I just do this, you know, what I do naturally or what I like to do, and this be the thing that would make a splash. Like, why me? Why would I have that privilege or that, you know, that favor? But all of these people are speaking to that reality, just doing what they love to do. Diane Carroll was an actress to the end of her days. Billie Holiday, a singer. Maya Angelou, a writer and a speaker. Robert Johnson, in his short life, because he ain't lived very long, 1911 to 1938, so shit, he was only 27. Oh, he's in the 27 club. Wow, that has a whole nother spin. Interesting, with like Kurt Cobain, and who else was in the 27th club? Another female rock star that I can envision, but I can't hear her name. But I think even was Jimi Hendrix in the 27 club? People that pretty much passed away at 27. And I mean, when you think about what you were doing at 27, imagine these are people that are accomplished. Imagine it all being done at 27. That also speaks to, you know, really not taking any moment for granted to let yourself be amazing, you know, to take yourself seriously, whether anyone else does or not, and maybe in some ways not so seriously, you know, if you feel me. All right, let's get a couple more. Oh, Malcolm X with a king card, of course. A popular figure during the civil rights movement, he is best known as the spokesman for the Nation of Islam. And he was alive from 1925 to 1965. So he was only 40 years old. Wow. Shoot. I'm only a couple years older than him. You know, and imagine how much he did in his lifetime. My goodness. The level of achievement. But you know why? Because the odds were so great. It was probably something about it that really pushed, you know, and empowered you to do something back then. You know, like you didn't feel like you had the luxury of, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it. You know, like you couldn't know that any day was promised beyond what you were blessed with. So you had to give it all you had, you know. And in some ways, I don't know, I'm torn between that mentality because I feel like I've lived many lifetimes. And I feel like I've really worked hard in a lot of lifetimes. But that's another story for another day. Or I certainly exist on many dimensions in which I work very, very hard, tirelessly. And not to say I haven't worked pretty hard in this one, because I have in different ways, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. It's been a great challenge in this lifetime so far, you know, but so good. So far, so good, though, I'll say. But some part of me is torn, you know, between like, what part of the game is it where we just live and let live? You know, like maybe that is the new challenge, you know, which is why I'm harping on this energy about it being so simple, whatever it is, you know, and like, well, it can't just be this. Like, I'm just supposed to do this. And, you know, it almost seems too easy, especially given the energy I'm drawing from these cards that has such a struggle. But maybe that's what it was all for. Even the lifetimes you lived or didn't, if you don't subscribe to it. You know, it's like, you know, working so hard to retire and enjoy your your days, you know, your leisure. Perhaps that's the time that we're in. If you kind of get into it, Black people are kind of on that tip, especially Black women right now, where it's like, we ain't working, we ain't fighting nobody's battles, we ain't carrying nobody's slack, not even our own. So it's no tea, no shade. It's like we're not picketing for nobody else's cause. We ain't rioting for nobody else's rights. You know, we ain't on the front lines for nobody but our own leisure right now. Taking care of ourselves like the empresses that we were divine to be ultimately. And it's like, is that the new normal? You know, I was literally having this conversation with myself, like, what part of, where is the balance, you know, and in this ambition for achievement, success, notoriety, like the things you can kind of check off, your list of important things to do, and really just enjoying life, like living, experiencing, having fun, relaxing, resting, reassuring yourself, if nothing, like maybe that is the revolution, because otherwise we've been working real hard up until now, even by divine dynasty. What was all the work for except for us to do what we want? And certainly, of course, that being aligned with what we feel empowered or even designed to do, divinely. But I feel like a large part of it is the living, is the living. I don't know, something about that here. Something about like really just finding your space and spreading your wings right there, right then and there. Right then and there. Of course, there's so much that can be said about Malcolm X. Definitely a very disciplined man, especially in his maturity, very devout to his faith, which I always find extremely admirable for anyone, especially in a balanced mind and a leveled mind that has their belief and their, they're sticking to it, and it actually adds value to their life. It's not anything that takes away from their living or anyone else's. Like, it's to be commended. But of course, like I said, there's so much that can be said. And this is the king of spades, is swords. So very direct, very and intelligent, a master in his craft, a master with his words, another person whose words still inspire to this day, like that still motivate to this day. People still read, I think it's called The Biography of Malcolm X, I think it is, and feel a synergy from that book. You know what I mean? I feel like there's more I could say, but it also speaks to transformation, because if you know the story of Malcolm X, or you ever watched the movie, he did a complete 180 from who he kind of was groomed to be, how circumstantially he was trekking out to amount to be, and living a life of crime and delinquency and things of that sort, to being highly respectable. I mean, that doesn't even do it justice to say that much. Man of faith, man of family, man, strong in his convictions, because when he was challenged against the Nation of Islam, when his faith was challenged up against, activities that he deemed were, what's the right word, like contradictory, he took a stand. And some might say he never really quite rebounded from that strong stance that he took against his own people, his own comfort zone, the place that, that groomed him, that where he, got his start. And sometimes, especially when you walk a highly spiritual path, you find yourself at odds with everything and everyone that you've ever known, that you've ever respected, that you've ever loved, that you've ever cared for or deferred to, and I feel like a lot of people, no matter what your faith or religion, are finding themselves in that position where the challenge is like, what do you believe? If you have to stand alone on it, could you? Would you? Can you? You know what I mean? Like, is it strong enough, your faith alone, to do so? So let's see, one more. So much for a short message, but hey, it is what it is. Yep, King of Swords. Very no nonsense, very direct. Means what he says what he means, but highly intelligent as well. Like I said, like expert brilliance in their field, and they assert it. You know, this is like somebody that's not afraid to be a genius in the room, you know, like to express their brilliance, you know, in one way, shape, or form, however that gets to be for you. Barbara Jordan, lawyer, educator, and politician. She became the first Black woman elected to the Texas Senate and first Black Texan, damn, in Congress. So the first Black woman and the first Black Texan, period. So before her, they ain't even have a Black person. And then she became the first Black woman. Wow, that's amazing. Barbara Jordan, 1936 to 1996. I don't know much about her, honestly, but this is also the 10 of Cups, which I kind of spoke up. The spirit of fulfillment, you know, of satisfaction, of happiness, of peace, of accomplishment. It's nice that we close on that because we got the 10 of Pentacles, which is that material expression. And then we got the 10 of Cups, which is the spiritual expression, or the energetic, the emotional expression and experience of just doing what you feel guided to do, what you feel born to do, what you feel happy to do, enlivened to do, excited to do, privileged to do, like whatever it is, you know, and of course the emphasis on the being, but I think, like I was saying earlier, the being part of it all is the allowance. You know, somehow us be reconditioning ourselves or allowing the reconditioning process to take hold of, like, of the affirmation of our personal identities, as unique as they may be, to be. If that makes sense. I know I just said something that's kind of like, I feel what I'm saying more than I think I'll probably be able to say it. But it's like the doing happens out of the being. The having happens out of the doing, right? The initiation of it all is who you get to be. Who did all these people get to be to do the things that they did? To have the accomplishments, the accolades, the awards, the successes that they had. Well, they had to be honest. They had to be honest. They had to be confident. They had to be courageous. They had to be in their truth. You know, they had to be affirmed, at least personally. And of course, I know external affirmation must have been the case, but they had to, there still always has to be a personal acceptance, because nobody can push you to the podium or push you to the mic, push you to the stage or in front of the camera. And circumstances can be orchestrated in a way where things kind of happen serendipitously, but you still have to be a yes to the opportunity, you know, or a yes to the challenge, a yes to the call, the charge, you know, the movement, whatever it is. Like, it still starts with you, you know. And for all of these folks, what they absolutely have in common is, you know, this relentless being, you know, like giving themselves permission to express the very best of themselves, even when that expression was not welcomed or in some ways applauded or celebrated. You know, I'm sure Barbara Jordan got a lot of backlash being the first Black anything in Texas and in Congress, no doubt. You know, I actually watched the story of what's her name? Goodness. First woman to run for president, first Black woman, Shirley Chisholm. That was a really good movie. What's the name? Regina King as far as I know anyway, did an excellent job portraying her. Like, I believed it, you know. She's a great actress. She's probably somewhere in this deck too. I could imagine. Maybe not. But yeah, Shirley Chisholm is the vibes that I get from this. And when you watch the movie, she faced hella adversity, you know, just trying to serve her people, trying to serve the community that she cared about, the community that she lived in, no doubt. So I can only imagine, but it's like something in her. And there it is. It's like really normalizing serving yourself. And in the way that these figures seem to do it, it almost seems selfless, like because we value and uphold the great service and legacy that they have left behind, you know, like we value the accomplishments, but ultimately they served themselves. They served the supreme self that was calling them to do something very specific, you know, that was calling them to to align with their gifts and talents, their natural abilities to be of service to mankind, you know, or to community or to the world overall. But ultimately, it definitely, now that I'm saying it, starts with serving self, you know, and that doesn't always get recognized. It certainly isn't normalized. I think it's a reconditioning that's happening, as I said, even in the example of Black women really taking care of themselves. But I think that's where it starts. It may look a little different now, you know, that we're in our soft life eras, you know, or at least that's the intention. It was a bit of a more, you know, rough road for those that were ultimately just trying to do that back then. But now, thank God, you know, that we have the privilege. We have the privilege, you know. Like I've said before, I think the challenge is like all of this energy we carry with us, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Unfortunately, it gets passed down through bloodlines, through frequencies, through narratives and stories, and of course, like through the evidence of their existence themselves. And I feel like the reconditioning that gets to happen is that we get to absorb the frequency of success and stardom in our own rights, and maybe perhaps release much of the struggle. You know, it's almost like Ten of Wands energy. There's the struggles that we may have absorbed circumstantially, societally, maybe even inherently, aren't really ours to bear anymore. Hell, maybe struggles that you have shouldered in so-called past lives or other dimensions of sorts are those to be released for a much softer life now, you know. And I think it's hard to allow, here's that word again, of the allowance, to allow yourself to do that without guilt or shame or pressure. Because when you look at these faces and you consider the cost and the sacrifice, it almost seems spoiled to assume that your life should be so sweet, you know, that your life should be so satisfying. Where is the struggle? Where is the grit? Where is the resistance? You know, we're almost looking for it because that's what we've been groomed to accept, let alone to even project and create for ourselves. But I really do feel there's something to it of us projecting this new normal of a more easeful existence. And it doesn't mean work doesn't get done. It doesn't mean movements aren't started and legacies aren't lived and led. But it doesn't have to be so hard. I don't subscribe to that narrative. I don't know if I ever really did truly in this lifetime, because that's always been a contention with me in real life. Is just how hard am I supposed to really work? You know what I mean? But it's one thing to consider that ideal, but it's another to completely release it from your psyche and maybe even from your subconscious, especially when you don't feel you have the right to. You know, who am I? You know, the perfect question, like, who am I? Who I am, you know? I am. That's who am I? I am. And I get to say, I get to decide what level of difficulty I assume and assert in this lifetime, if none other before, certainly in this time. And I would love for that to be the legacy that I get to leave for my loved ones, of blood and otherwise, you know? So we can't put my face on one of these cards. If nothing else, you're going to say that she lived her best life. Honey, because that is the goal. Okay, so anyway, I hope you enjoyed these little cards. I may try to squeeze at least one more in there, but I mean, of course, we don't have to limit this to just Black History Month, as of course, even the history, the dynamicism, if that's a word, of Black people shouldn't be squeezed into just a month. It's to be celebrated eternally, you know, certainly. So they may pop up again, maybe as like oracle little messages with tarot, or maybe another reading just like this. But either way, whether you're Black, white, whatever culture you are, whatever origins you hail from, whatever language you speak, whatever you identify as, I hope that the inspiration transmits all the same, you know, because that's definitely, I think the message is pretty universal. It's certainly not specific to Blackness, you know. But as usual, we definitely have a lot of inspiration to offer. And that's never not going to be the case, okay? Especially as long as I live. So, anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Happy Black History Month, if it relates to one and all, because regardless of if it does or not, there's something that you enjoy that a Black person invented or came up with to make your life just a little bit more easeful. So it's only right that, you know, it get that karma has come back home. Yeah, thanks for listening and watching. Until next time, as always, I leave you with